The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Mima and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.
I feel like songs that we write are matter that's already existing in the universe. I think that songs that already exist that we are receiving and interpreting in our own way that it becomes a labyrinth that you sort of have the pleasure of unfolding as a musician into something that makes sense from our mindset in today's world and the society we live in and everything going on in our lives.
Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If the three of you would be so kind, would you mind introducing yourselves?
Josh Kauffman, bass.
Thomas Davis, guitar and vocals.
Abbie Davis, drums.
Of the band?
Oryx.
Ben Oryx, yeah. And we, Oryx.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
An important part.
Tommy and Abbie, I've spoken to you once before. Welcome back.
Thanks for having us.
Josh, I believe you are a new addition to the band. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Would you mind telling people a little bit about yourself and what you were doing before you met Tommy and Abbie?
Yeah. So I'm here in Denver, play bass, guitar, drums. Just kind of a local guy here in Denver that was getting amp repair from Tommy. And also every time Oryx played Denver, I would always go to the shows, help him move gear, became acquainted and a friendship started. And as COVID happened and Lamenting came out, we kept in touch and, getting more amps repaired and just started talking and realized we were like-minded folks and decided to start playing music together. And yeah, kind of the rest is history, but yeah, we just really melded and vibed together well and write music really well together. But, just kind of all started about talks with gear and, and the love of music.
So, Tommy and Abbie, the last time you guys were on, we spoke about your previous album, Lamenting A Dead World, which came out in 2021. Do you want to catch everybody up on what you guys have been up to since then?
Friday, October 18th, we're releasing Primordial Sky in digital format. This album is our second release on Translation Lost Records. And yeah, we couldn't be more proud of this record. It's a very complex listen. And I think I consider it a sister album to Lamenting A Dead World. They're very well paired, I think, in a listen back to back. But we really embraced long format on this new album. It's I think a 42 minute listen with 4 songs. 2 of those songs are 13 minutes. And I think that, those songs are better digested as journeys unto themselves and a really deep and metaphysical listening experience that really draws in the listener and kind of gets into new territory for us.
So we'll speak about Primordial Sky in more depth in a little bit, but when the last time you guys were on, we had a very in-depth conversation about your history and your songwriting process. So if people are curious about that, they can go back to the previous episode. I'm curious, with the addition of Josh, has anything changed with regards to the way you guys write songs?
Yeah, I mean, we, like Josh is saying, we really all connected on just a similar love of music and inspiration and bands that we grew up on. And so getting into a practice space and jamming together for the first few times, it was something kismet, just something magic about it. And it just really, we started writing immediately. And we started writing even songs like Ephemeral were kind of early on, like early iterations of that song. We just started kind of getting ideas and coming together. And it was kind of just like a fire was lit under just the 3 of us. And it kind of just started happening right then. And we really, this, like I've said in other interviews too, the songwriting process has been pretty similar since Tommy and I started writing 12 years ago. We have a routine, we have a process, we do things, we kind of just have the way it works for us. Ideas come together, we rehash them, we work on them. Sometimes songs take maybe a year to come together, but we're pretty, I think, just strong about editing and making sure that what we put on vinyl or what we put on a record is what we want to go with. So that sometimes takes time. And that's just always been our songwriting process. But I think what's just been really fun about adding Josh into the mix is just having a third perspective, a really strong voice that also has the same love for heavy music and also brought a lot of his own individual personality with tone. And like he was saying, love for certain like equipment and all that, which is really fun to hear that even on Primordial Sky. There's a really strong bass presence. And also, like Josh said, being a drummer was awesome to write with someone who could also work with me on drum parts. And just it was a giant collaborative process. So I think yeah, kind of written the same for years, but it was just fun to have a new voice in that mix. And I think the result is something we're really excited about.
And just to add, as the new guy, it's wonderful to work with people that have this amazing work ethic to songwriting and crafting and literally just hashing it out hours and hours. We have thousands of riffs, just since we all joined forces, the three of us. And it's so wonderful to see like our start of a song and the finish, but just working with like-minded individuals and just, all having a very like-minded work ethic to writing, recording, and touring. And just like Abbie said, it's that kismet. I always love like Steve Von Till in an interview one time said that you have to seek a freak, somebody that thinks like you when you play music. And I've never met two individuals that just think a lot like me, where I can play a note and like, oh, keep doing that. And then we establish a riff and that becomes a song. And it's such this effortless, very wonderful experience where it doesn't feel like it's forced or even like, oh man, that was so grueling and excruciating. No, it's just this like wonderful writing process. And sometimes one song will become 5 songs, and the riff writing process is wonderful with people who are just like heads down, working hard, really grinding to, nitpick and really glean through those riffs and then picking, kind of the best of the best, being our own worst and best critics at the same time. So it's really wonderful to work with like-minded individuals.
Cool. Tommy, the last time we spoke, you used the term layering with regards to your songwriting.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain again what layering is for in the context of Oryx's music and your songwriting?
Yeah. Well, Primordial Sky is layering at its most like complex and I would say like Primordial Sky is a very, very layered album. No, essentially that term I guess I throw around as like it's fundamental to the way that I've learned to write songs and riffs. And a lot of the time when I'm writing on my own, I will use a looper pedal and I'll loop something fundamental and add a layer. And given 5, 6, 7 layers, the end result can be something completely unrecognizable from what you begin with. And that's pretty indicative of the way that we write songs, even in a band setting. Like Josh was saying, somebody will begin playing a riff and I've been reading the Rick Rubin's book and just, he talks a lot about being tuned to the frequencies of the universe and just sort of, I think that we are receiving energy. I feel like songs that we write are matter that's already existing in the universe. I think that songs that already exist that we are receiving and interpreting in our own way that it becomes a labyrinth that you sort of have the pleasure of unfolding as a musician into something that makes sense from our mindset in today's world, in the society we live in, and everything going on in our lives and our musical taste, all these universal qualities that work into what we consider the finished product. And I feel like it is that sort of cascade of when you write something and it just, why does it feel right? I don't know, but then you add these layers and you start to mix in other elements and it becomes something new and it takes on a life of its own. And in our case, I think becomes something extremely, I would say, emotive and charged. It feels, I think that the music that we've begun to write is very expressive and intense in different ways than we've otherwise written. And there's, I guess, maybe a sort of undertow, there's a severity and an angst that I think is really specific to the frequencies that we've sort of tapped into. So that's layering though is a big, it's a big aspect of our writing. One of my favorite songwriting techniques, and something that Josh and I do frequently in songs, is having like a bass riff that will be working in one way, maybe in sort of a positive tilt, and then you have a guitar riff simultaneously working in a negative tilt, and they just seem to find each other in this sonic realm that something about it just makes sense, and it is sort of an unexplainable quality, but it's something that I think we love exploring and just sort of teasing, like how far we can explore that concept.
So, out of curiosity, did Rick Rubin say what the tuning of the frequency of the universe is? Is it B minor?
36.
Is it whatever Tony Iommi's tuned to? That would be my guess.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know that we have a name for it.
I asked this question the last time, but since you have a new bass player, maybe it's worth asking again. What would you say the role of the bass is in Oryx's music?
At times it's melody and, thickness, and it adds to the heaviness. It gives more weight. The drums and the guitar as a two-piece have always been so intriguing to me. And Oryx has been a band that I really have followed and admired for a long time. And to hear it go from a two-piece to Lamenting to now is, just that constant evolution of creating that sonic attack, and, filling in that kind of missing piece is just like gain stacking and just filling in another low end. And Tommy gets to play kind of more low end Meister and bass player, and just more heavily distorted guitar with a lot of clarity on the solos, lots of reverb and delay. And I'm more of kind of the melody and sometimes like the happy side of the songs, where it just like anchors what's happening. And I think for the first time, being a drummer as well, Abbie and I really lock in, especially live, when there's times where just, the bass drum and the bass are locking in, and Tommy gets to do what Tommy does and fill in the space.
Don't be jealous.
Yeah.
It's
he goes
a lot of delay and just beautiful leads. And it's cool to have like the guitar do its own thing and the bass and drums just really carry this rhythm. I've always been a fan of trios, whether it's Motorhead or Jimi Hendrix and The Experience. I've always appreciated where three people can just create this like cacophony that just fits together so well, where each individual is kind of doing their own thing, but it's a building block that fits perfectly together. And it forms this like puzzle piece where we're like, all right, you do this, but three of us together, we're all doing very separate things sonically. But when it's added together, it just like, it fits perfectly. And Abbie had mentioned like tonal wise, it's really nice. Like the drums are fitting this one tone, the bass are, is fitting this other tone. And then the guitar is carrying, the mids and the treble, and the bass is low, and the drums just fit in the mids really nice. And it's just like cool to create this album where sonically, like the approach has always been Oryx, but adding a bass is like been really incredible to write with Tommy, where he's like, all right, let's do this melody, or you're going to kind of do more of the lead part and I'm going to do more of the rhythm. And it's really cool to play with somebody that thinks, the opposite of the norm. Just sonically, I think the bass just gives it girth, makes it heavy, makes it, downtrodden. And also I'm playing through a lot of gain stacked fuzz, and Tommy, I feel like, is a very simple distortion, a lot of clarity, a lot of beauty and chiminess to it. And I'm more of the kind of dirt and dirge to it,
I think the only thing I would add is that as a two-piece, we always really struggled with delivery. I think that the music that we had in our heads wasn't something that we were necessarily able to access without a bassist. And I really love being able to explore, like, allowing the song that comes to bear, where, through those universe frequencies, whatever, and where we could actually see that through to an end product that really does represent what we're hearing in our heads. It's also really fun. I think like Josh said, sort of flipping the concept of bass on its head. I have a lot of fun with Josh in practice where we can sort of like alternate responsibilities, like traditional responsibilities, I think, in a way, where, we'll have the guitar ride the root and then have the bass actually lead the melody and then reverse it. And it's a lot of we do use those writing techniques in Primordial Sky and just sort of like explore what it feels like to sort of trade those monolithic feelings of like instead of the bass just riding the root the whole time, like incorporating that into the guitar and then back and forth. I think it creates a much more interesting effect in the final product.
So, as Tommy mentioned, Primordial Sky will be released by Translation Loss, actually a few hours from when we're having this conversation. Tommy, you described Primordial Sky as a sister album to your previous album, Lamenting A Dead World. Did you begin working on this album soon after Lamenting came out?
We had been writing Ephemeral for nearly 2 years. That was around the time that Josh joined the band in 2022. Right? We worked on Ephemeral for a long, long time. And they did have, I wouldn't say that there was any overlap. We tend to, as a band, we really tend to close chapters and start new ones, and we don't really spend time on past releases unless it's for like special occasion or, an anniversary show or something like that, where we want to dig up something old. It's not traditionally something that we do. So I think that once we were done with Lamenting a Dead World, I think we immediately started writing the next thing. And something else I would definitely mention is that our writing style, I think, is different than a lot of bands in that we tend to demo a lot of the material that we're writing. We really try and put through the paces live. That can be really dangerous or unnerving in terms of like playing a song that's not maybe ready, but we play we've tended to play like the closest iteration possible to what we think is the final product, but really to try it on for size and feel for ourselves, really put it through the paces of feeling how it feels to play this live with people. And I think that this is primarily something that we do because it is really emotive music. It's very intense music. And I think that if at the end of the day, the delivery on stage doesn't feel right, then that's really the priority. We want the recorded material to be top notch, of course, but I think that our aim is to be a good recorded and live band, and which I think is really hard to do. And I think that our approach to being both is accomplished through writing and sort of like beta testing some of our material to see how it feels and see how the delivery comes across.
It's interesting that you use the word beta testing, because that's what was going through my head as well. I worked in tech for a little while, and the audience, audience in quotes, but the user reaction was a big part of figuring out whether or not something was working or.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the audience emotion and feeling, or if something like a riff or a song is received, or we can immediately feel it live if it's working or not working. But when we feel like it gets to its final iteration, we literally play it live, and warts and all, we try it out and we tour with it, and we really come back to the drawing board and we rewrite from there. And I feel like it's such a solid way to like see what works, what doesn't, how does it work live, how does it work recorded as a band. We really try and strive to create the album live, and sonically it's hard to create sometimes. So
I would also clarify that like this is not the same as writing what we think people want to hear. That's something that I think is, it's not the same as writing music intended for a specific impact. It's just making sure that these songs feel right to us, and not like did everyone mosh at the right time kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I do think it's important to clarify, because it's not so much audience reaction that we're concerned with in that, but it is a really important aspect of our writing process that I think putting it to the test for ourselves and really like, do we feel the emotion that the song needs? Do we feel like an intimate connection to the song where we can't let it go? Because that's where we end up with the final iterations of the songs are like, oh, that's yes, we found it, and there's like a feeling of like a connection there that is not something that we're going to let go of once we've discovered that. So yeah, I think it's maybe worth clarifying.
Yeah. You're not writing 13-minute singles, right?
Apparently, that's not allowed anymore.
Yeah, we learned that Spotify apparently disallows.
They don't like that.
I think it's anything over 10 minutes cannot be used as a single.
What about three?
Yeah. Yeah, you have to break it down. Yeah.
Well, with that in mind, has any song changed drastically after you played it live and decided to rework it?
I think when I think about the 4 songs on this new album, I think the biggest might have been Ephemeral and Myopic. Myopic went through several iterations. We actually, the middle part, and just kind of as people are listening to that song, you'll know it has different kind of sections to it. And the parts where it's just guitar and bass, that went through kind of different iterations live. And kind of how did that feel? Because there was parts and times where I was coming in earlier and it just felt like we weren't giving it enough time to breathe. And so we really sat and thought about that song and that particular piece because, and if you've listened to previous Oryx songs, like that is our style. Like we do like having parts where I drop out, guitar or bass, whatever comes in, and that we really love those dynamics. But what we've really tried with these new songs is thinking more about the impact and the dynamics of dropping out, how long do you play, coming back in, and it really felt like we nailed it for specifically with Myopic. And Ephemeral too just went through several iterations. Mm-hmm. We toured that song. Like I said, that was one of the first songs we wrote with Josh. It was just an early song that we wrote and love it to this day, but it just went through different phases. And then, and I, even on this question, I think about Primordial Sky, the song was one of the songs too that we didn't really even play live. We wrote that in the studio or in the basement, our practice space, and wrote the hell out of that. It just took weeks and weeks and weeks because there were so many riffs and we just didn't, there was like, all right, we got too many riffs.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
That we had to cut it, start getting more concise with it and figure out really where we wanted to go with that song. So it's not always even our routine to take out live. Sometimes we don't do that. And sometimes we just do what we do in this, in the practice space. And what speaks to us as a 3-piece is really ultimately what matters and sometimes produces some of our strongest material.
Tommy, in the past, you spoke about only wanting to look forward and sometimes hating previous songs or previous releases after you're done with them. How do you feel about Lamentations now? Lamenting, I should say.
Yeah, I don't lamenting. I got to throw in a dad joke every now and then. I honestly still love that record. I think that there are, Abbie and I were actually talking about that today. I feel like that record was really misunderstood in a lot of ways. And I still look back very fondly.
Sorry to interrupt you. Misunderstood by who?
Well, I mean, when I think one of the things that I noticed, I really try and avoid reading reviews and focusing on that as anything that should shape or mold the craft itself. But something that did stick with me that I really felt like, well, it just didn't maybe make sense or land with the person, but was having Lamenting, the title track, which was an ambient track and, an instrumental. We collabed with Ethan McCarthy. And I think that songs like that were meant as maybe like a palate cleanser to introduce Oblivion. And so I think that in some of the long format aspects of albums, I look back really fondly. I think that everything we've done has been with careful, meticulous care and almost viewing it like a mixtape. Like we always want the segue between songs to feel right. We also write I think it's really important to note that we write every album with specific consideration for vinyl. That's why our albums are 40 to 42 minutes long. We are specifically trying to write the maximum length that we can for an A-side, B-side. And So there are things like that I think if, you know, I think people want sometimes just the quick and easy digestible thing. And Lamenting, I think, was a more long format, kind of emotive album that didn't quite, I don't know if people knew what to do with it. And that's okay. But I look back fondly on it.
I would just add to that with Lamenting, when you're talking about both albums, right, or Lamenting and Primordial, Lamenting opened the doors for Primordial. Like,
Right.
if you listen to Oblivion, it is the perfect journey into Primordial. And
Sister albums.
yeah. It really was, I think it's just some of our strongest moments, and moving forward continually will be. But it really is like, I think the timing of it coming out in 2021, we just weren't afforded even the chance to really tour that often when it came out. There's a lot of changes that year for us as a band, and just in general with the music, touring scene and live shows in general. It took a minute to come back. So I think the timing of it, which has always been kind of a funny Oryx thing for us anyways, it maybe didn't land that time, but we're really proud of, you could go back and listen to our discography and it makes sense. It fits.
Right.
Lamenting fits, and Primordial is the next step.
Where did you guys record this album?
We recorded with Wes Johnson at Archive Recordings in Salt Lake City. He has his own studio and a place for bands to reside in during the time you're recording with him. And so that was very new for us and just kind of the first time we've been able to go to a recording session, and that's all we do for the time that we're there. So that was really unique in itself. And it was our first time recording with Wes. He's worked with a lot of kind of different styles of music and metal, Cult Leader and other bands in that area. And it just really stuck out to us that we could have the chance to focus on what we were doing and the project at hand. Usually, even if we've done it locally, we've had to like kind of come home or like still go to work the next day. We've had to kind of mix it in with our schedules, but it was great to go in there and just do what we wanted to do. And he also had it set up where it's sort of like, like an apartment, or it's like where you get to also cook and kind of have a communal area. So a part of the cool part about this record and doing this record was sometimes Tommy would wake up with riffs and he'd go down, like this is in the morning after coffee, go downstairs into the recording studio in the space and actually just kind of write some riffs that ended up on the album. So that was just a new experience for us. And I feel like that studio and Wes's presence and his guidance allowed for that.
Yeah, super conducive to creativity and just a lot of great output. And Wes is very good at kind of getting the best out of us. And also he's got a great ear. And
He'll tell you when you did a bad take.
And he tell you when he did a bad take, which is
that's a good thing.
Honesty is the best thing,
Was the retreat environment part of the appeal? To be able to get away and just focus on the recording?
Yeah, definitely. Abbie and I have a fucking moving caravan circus. We bring our dogs with us, and so it's nice to kind of like feel like we're setting up shop a little bit. With Wes's environment, was absolutely top notch and killer. I think that it's interesting too. It's to be able to create your own environment. I feel like a studio should be sort of a blank canvas for the artist, and a studio shouldn't necessarily it shouldn't add color to the canvas. That should be, it should allow the band to be able to create in their authentic way. And I think that's, at the end of the day, that's really what I'm grateful to Wes for, allowing us the opportunity to kind of shake the jitters of, the first day getting in and kind of getting settled, is always, it's kind of a lot. And then, I feel like after you're at the end of like a 2-week period, we're just fully in the grind and able to really just execute the album in its authentic way. So I'm very, very happy about the opportunity to do that at that studio.
What would you say Wes brought to the sound, the finished product?
Quite a lot. He ended up doing the final master, and we had him do the final master. I think I would say that categorically he really understood the sound that we intended to have for this album. That was extremely important in this exact album because of the way that the guitar and bass, the entire mix needed to come across. It was critical to have that mix be done right and not have the listener focused on nuances. I think at the end of the day, we wanted the listener to really be able to lose themselves in the songs, and that kind of requires somebody to know what the song should sound like in the first place. And I feel like that really was sort of meant to be.
Yeah, from like beginning to end, the drum capture to the vocals both had the same amount of attention, beginning to end, whether it be ultra scrutinous or just, keep doing that. The takes felt comfortable. I felt like the guitar and bass had room to breathe, but also they just came in naturally after the time and effort were put into the drums, and that vocals weren't an afterthought. It was just as important as day one, and really scrutinous on, good takes, but also like very inspiring. And also the environment just being conducive to like producing really well, put your head down, work, but also was a lot of fun, really enjoyable, just focused. It was nice. Like you felt like you were at home and you didn't have to go far to, make some coffee or some ramen or grab a beer and then just hit it hard in the studio. And it didn't feel like work at all, but we put in a lot of hard work and he brought it out of us. And I think it was a great environment for that.
And I also say he doesn't just record heavy music, right? He records a lot of different genres. So he brought a really interesting and fresh perspective to working with us too, where it's like him and Tommy collaborated on vocals or on a bass, with Josh and drums with myself. And so there was a lot of different, like, just perspectives that was really refreshing. And we've worked with a lot of different people with recording, and it was just really cool to see someone else have a take on Oryx too, and have kind of just participating in that process with us. And also, like Josh is saying, creating such a creative, comfortable atmosphere, it really does bring the best out of you as a musician.
And he had a Leslie. That's a major, major thing that we were fortunate enough on Lamenting to record the Leslie. And it was one of the first things I asked him when we showed up. Do you have a Leslie? And he's like, oh yeah. And so we did incorporate that. And I'm very, very happy with the result. No digital effect does it justice.
Yeah, also really just great ear, great input, just all around. Let us be us,
Sorry, complete noob question here. What's a Leslie?
A Leslie is a speaker inside of a box that rotates on a motor.
I see. Okay.
And you can it's usually meant for organs. And
so almost like a tremolo thing, except it spins around?
Tremolo is actually meant, and like the old Fender amps, they call them vibrato. That effect is meant to mimic a Leslie.
Okay, I see.
So the Leslie was like the analog, the OG, and then a lot of the tremolo and vibrato are actually replicating that effect. The rotary speaker effect, if you buy like an effects pedal that says rotary speaker, that's exactly what they're talking about.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's basically the reason that's really cool is that you can set up multiple mics around that speaker while it's rotating, and the lead in Ephemeral basically gets into kind of this wild left-right panning oscillation, and that's how that was performed. And it's with the speaker just jamming in circles, which is pretty fun.
Okay. So, even without remembering what you had said about layering, when I was listening to this album, it did seem like there's a lot of stuff kind of hidden that's not apparent on the first time you listen to it. Like, this does feel like a headphones album that you, especially during some of the ambient parts, that there's a lot of stuff going on that you may not necessarily notice the first time you listen to it. Was that intentional?
Yeah, I think that's the result of. So let's see. I think backing up a little bit would be the proper way to answer the question, because as a band, we tend to feel like our album is ready and book a recording date. And then for one reason or another, for the last two albums, it hasn't worked out that way. And so then we are generally granted somewhere between 4 and 6 months extra that we didn't plan on, which we use to refine the album even more. And I think that we always benefit from those extra months in terms of editing and in terms of really creating the end product that I think can really take things further and really use a lot more imagination on how the songs are approached and implemented. I think that time is the real factor there. Time allows for the songs to evolve to what they're supposed to be. And if we're given enough time, then we're probably going to layer a lot more. So the end result tends to be a highly layered product that has a lot of complexity to it.
Would you describe this as a headphones album?
I don't really know what that means.
Okay. So, like, back in the the 70s, when people really started experimenting with recording techniques, a lot of the prog bands would put in stuff, and you can even hear it on something like Inagata Devita.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, where there's a lot of
Maybe the
stuff
White Album.
kind of hidden in the background that you wouldn't hear if you're listening to it through speakers, and definitely not through like your phone or whatever. But if you listen to it through headphones, you can hear a lot of details that are not immediately apparent.
So what's funny about that is I feel like we've always written those live, attempted to do it with either effects or samples, whatnot, but it's very much true to our writing style and what we try to achieve live. Really, the only added tracking or things that might add to the ambience or ambiance, if you will, are like acoustic intro.
A French word, classy.
The synths.
Stop thinking out your pinky, Josh.
But they're always there in the beginning of the writing. It wasn't like an afterthought or, really intentional. I think sonically, now the three of us add each element to kind of create that. What's great about me kind of doing what I do with the bass is Tommy gets to add leads and layers, whether it's with looping or the reverb or even the delay. We were able to utilize like the Leslie in the studio, but he very much tries to do that live. So those little nuances, like you said, in prog albums where things pan or ping pong, or even like, you're like, whoa, I think it's Wes's.
Yeah, that's Wes's touch
to add that. But really the writing style was like all like one thing, three-piece band could do, like right off the bat.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that our intention is for the album to be something that is executable live, no matter what. But I think that it's a complex album, and there are things that on the first listen, I would imagine probably fly past people. And, we have been hearing that a lot this week, that people have enjoyed multiple listens. And I think that that's a good thing, allowing something to sort of take on its own life. And I mean, that is the essence of art. It is subjective. I think that I have personally really enjoyed hearing that people have interpreted the album in their own way. And I think that that's important for, the fact that being internalized, I'm not going to tell people how to listen to the album or what they should look for. I think that that's the exciting part about it, is that they can discover it.
I will just add my 2 cents on all that too. I agree with what they're saying. And I think since the beginning of Oryx, we have learned a lot of wanting to write stuff that we can play live. And we learned quickly when Tommy and I were at Two-Piece how important that was, because really from the start, we've had so much fun playing live. That's just been the heart and soul of this band. And recording has always been kind of like, yeah, it's a part of the band. Yeah, we have to do it. But live is where, even just as a foundation of this band, it's been like where we got a lot of fulfillment from. And so we always and especially with Josh on board, we've been able to be like, all right, what we put out with Primordial, we're going to play live. And we've been able to, and it's really been fun because I get where you're coming from with the headphones comment. I think this will do fantastic in the headphones, fantastic on vinyl through your speakers, but come to a live show and we'll give you the same thing.
Exactly.
Cool.
It's an oral massage of the bestest kind.
Keeps trying to massage.
But I think just what we tried to do and what our ears heard for the final result was, I think, very conducive to listening to on headphones, and you get all the different sonic experiences. But I think at the end of the day, we just try to do what we do live and just give it emotion and different, volume swells and different tones, and just kind of putting in our own take. And I think Wes captured that perfectly. And yeah, it works just as well live or on headphones, but our intention was to be very much this is what we're trying to convey. And hopefully you receive the art well, and you get you hear what we're trying to put down, and
Cool. So speaking of live, do you guys have anything planned for the rest of the year, or maybe for next year?
Yeah, definitely more next year. And soon we'll be able to announce some stuff. But, just our plan is to take this as far as we can and to play this album live just to make up for what we couldn't do with Lamenting. And we just hope to get this as far and wide as possible.
So by the time people hear this episode or watch it on YouTube, Primordial Sky will be out through Translation Lost Records. Abbie, Tommy, and Josh, please tell everyone how they can order the album.
That is correct.
What's the best way to get it?
Best way to get it. So translationlost.com, they have vinyl for pre-order. And oryx.bandcamp.com will have, stream and buy merch. That is where all of our merch is located. But either site will get you access to that record.
Do you want to say anything about the vinyl versions that Translation Lost is creating for this?
There's 3 different variants, very limited. So I would say hop on that.
Go get that pink vinyl. Shout out to John Harris. He did the artwork for our album. We really connected with the artwork that we licensed for this, and I feel like that's something that is worth stating. We're very grateful to John for that.
And we want to shout out Translation Loss and Drew and Shannon and all the folks that are working with us on this, because as you can see, if you go check out the vinyl, they put a lot of love in what the different variants look like. Mm-hmm. And it really matches the amazing artwork, and it's just a total package. So thank you for even just checking it out if you've listened to it by the time we're putting this out. Yes. And please, go check out our merch and record.
So let's talk about the John Harris artwork a little bit. Tell me about John Harris and why you wanted this painting to go with the album.
We know John Harris from his commission pieces for NASA, basically painting the planetary surfaces, which I think is a really incredible task. I'm personally a space nerd, very excited about all things space. I love space. So anyways, I think that when we came across this piece of art and we had the music at hand, there was just as the word Abbie used before was kismet. I really believe that that's true. We just felt like a clear connection that this described in a really bizarre and odd fashion what we were trying to put forth. Something, I guess, feeling dystopian, but oddly hopeful. I think that's sort of where we lie. Yeah, like we are not necessarily pessimistic, and this sort of represented that.
Cool. And if people want to get updates on tour dates and things like that, what's the best way to do that?
Our communication to the outside world tends to be through Instagram. Instagram.com/the band Oryx is where you can find us.
Is there anything else you guys want to say?
Thank you for inviting us back. It's been awesome talking with you again.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
or ambiance, if you will.
The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Mima and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.